Should you take your kids to see Disney's new live action remake of Lilo and Stitch? Maybe. So, this movie was very interesting. I see it as like two separate movies playing out at the same time. You have like the 6-year-old version, the Lilo version, and then you have the adult version, the Nani version. So, let me explain that. Lilo and all the little kids who watch it are mostly focused on Lilo and Stitch and having a good time and the fun little silly things they do. But the adults are very much going to pick up on and resonate with Nani, which is Lilo's older sister, who's right in that after high school, like starting college age. And the story is that their parents died. And so now Nani, the older sister, has basically taken the mother role and she's taking care of Lilo. And of course, this is fairly fresh in their minds, so they're having some imbalances and stuff trying to navigate that new relationship. Also, the loss of their parents and stuff. So Nani ends up dealing with social workers, and they're trying to take Lilo away or trying to make things work, but it ain't working. Their family, which is just two of them now, is dysfunctional and that sort of thing, and trying to parent little Lilo. Um, it's going to resonate with some parents, and it's going to be very real for parents. So you have this like fun, silly movie, which is more like some of the straight to, I guess in the past it'd be straight to Disney Channel, but maybe more now straight to Disney Plus kind of TV shows, where they're just kind of like cheesy for kids and stuff. You kind of have a little bit of that aspect going on for kids, for the little guys. But then for the adults, it's more like a Hallmark movie almost, where it's bad things happening, but it's not crazy intense serious, but it is all these serious topics, and at the end, at the end of the movie, it's all going to work out, right? Like a Hallmark movie. So it's very interesting that they were able to do this in both. And for what's that mean for kids in between? And I don't know. Um, it depends what your kids, how much they pick up on it and what they've been through. If you got kids that have been through adoption or the foster system, or maybe even single parent households, or maybe you are a grandparent or an older kid raising a little one. Um, this might hit home harder for some. They may understand. And you take a 3-year-old and they're going to see Lilo and they're going to see Stitch and they're having a fun time and they're squirting each other with water and playing in the ocean. Okay. But at some point, adults can understand this. So where is that crossover? Where does that happen when you're a teenager? Does that happen when you're a kid? Kids who've been through processes similar probably are going to identify. And then you as the parent need to heavily consider how that will impact your specific kid. Because some kids may see that as, they may be able to relate, and other kids, it may trigger trauma and stuff, and you don't want to traumatize your kids, um, that sort of thing. So I would suggest anybody who's had their kids go through a similar situation, um, where they are not with mom and dad, where they, a grandparent had to step in, or an older sibling, or even just parents who got remarried after getting divorced or a parent dying or anything like that. I encourage you to actually watch the movie yourself first. Just like wait until it's out and released. It's going to go on Disney Plus at some point, right? Wait until it's on Disney Plus or something, then watch it, or go buy yourself a ticket if it's that important to you. Sit through it right now by yourself, and then go take your kid to see it. I wouldn't show kids who've had a trauma experience in that area this without you previewing it yourself, because you know your own kids. For all the other kids who haven't experienced something like that before, I think it's up to you as the parent to determine where this is going to land. You're definitely going to get some questions, I think, about some of the process and some of what was happening there. I don't think it means that it can't be watched by kids. Um, there's been other movies that have covered these topics and stuff before too, right? and kids live through these topics. It's just expect some questions and stuff about the process of. In this case, it would be Lilo's sister Nani has to take care of her, right? And they're not doing it. The bills are racking up. She loses her job. They give her a list of stuff to get through, and then Stitch comes in during this time and makes a mess of the whole process when they're trying to get everything cleaned back up. Um, and there's social workers and stuff around too. So expect some questions, but it doesn't, I don't think, negate it from uh, being something that your kids can watch and have a good time in. The one thing that would negate it is if you're the kind of parent who won't let your kids do stuff with aliens or with like Pokemons and stuff because of the demonic ties to that. Yeah, this isn't for you. Stitch is obviously an alien, and he comes the intro, which is actually very very fast. So like, don't come late to the movie because you'll like miss Stitch's introduction, his backstory. It's very quick. They rush through it very quickly. There's a lot of aliens, but they're all none of them are like scary or anything. They all seem to be like if they were drawing some characters or some critter characters on screen, some animals or something, you'd just be like, oh, that's not scary. So the only time that the aliens were even slightly scary is whenever Stitch crash lands on the planet and they have him. People who remember the original might remember the scene where he's like his spaceship's crashed and it's dark out and he's like laughing and there's fire in the background. And even then, it's not necessarily scary. It's just a little. It plays into the badness of Stitch. So there you go. That's the aliens. They're not unless you already object to aliens. That's it's not going to be a concern to you. Um, there was one swear as well. Shortly right after that scene where Stitch crash lands, some guy, and near as I can tell, the only reason that he's in the movie is to say what the H. He kind of like says it with like a drawl or something, so it's slightly less obvious. But if you watch the trailer, it's in the trailer. I'd spoken about that before on a video I had about cursing in kids' movies. But there was no reason to put it in there, but they did. So there it is. That was the only swear that I caught. They did say OMG once, and it was very prominent. It was very prominent OMG. You're not going to miss that one. As far as Stitch himself, he does behave badly, and I was concerned going into this that it would be one of those movies where the only funny parts are like because of bad behavior and stuff, right? But he does kind of have a good redemption arc going. Like at the end, he's like, "Okay, I turned myself in yet for my crimes." In the very beginning, in the 5 minutes or whatever it is, intro, and he's like, "I accept my punishment" and that kind of thing. Um, he His actions say those. His words do not say, "Hey, I accept my punishment" and that kind of thing. He just says, "Okay, I'm ready to go now." Something along those lines. Yeah, I should go. Um, but his behavior, I thought they did a pretty good job of like animating him. Is it animation whenever it's anyway of representing him and his facial expressions and those kind of things as one of he's trying to like fit in. So they portrayed him a little bit more like a puppy who doesn't know how to behave, or a kid who's just trying to fit in and trying to learn and stuff. So, for example, he sees the Godzilla um, movie being played somewhere and going through the city and smashing things, right? And then so later, it's not that much later, he's in the sand and smashing sand castles, okay? And some of the other stuff like that, Lilo teaches him to do a couple things, but like he sees behavior and then he copies that behavior. So he sees the guys. It's set in Hawaii, right? So they're throwing around the torches and stuff, and he sees that going on, and then he copies them. But whoopsie, he maybe loses a torch and it lights them on fire, right? He didn't intentionally go over and set fire to it. Um, so a lot of Stitch's bad behavior is accidental and not understanding how to behave. And then Lilo starts trying to teach him how to behave. And then the movie has this line where they say it's basically something along the lines of like, You are not bad, but you do bad things sometimes. So you are not a bad person, Lilo, but you do bad things sometimes. That kind of thing. Um, so Nani says it to Lilo once, and then Lilo says it to Stitch once, and it might be said a third time. Um, and I did kind of like that. It's basically like, look, you are not this bad person where you have to do bad things. Like, it kind of had that bit of a, you have a choice, and just because you've made bad choices doesn't mean that you have to continue to do that kind of thing. That's the way I took it. It could be one of those things like, oh, well, you get to be bad and you're still a good person. But I took it to kind of be as an encouragement. It seemed to be in the situation, like Lilo. I'm sorry, Nani was talking to Lilo afterwards and being like, because Leela was like, "Oh, I've done bad things and I'm a bad person." She's like, she was really feeling bad. Okay. And Nani was telling her, "Look, you've done bad things, but that doesn't mean that you have to be bad," basically. And Leela was having the same kind of conversation with Stitch. So I thought that was really good. It wasn't pushing, it was telling people, "Look, hey, you can make a change," teaching kids, basically, right? Hey, you can still make a change. You do not have to do those bad things and that bad behavior. And Lilo even sat Stitch down one time. It's like, look, this is your badness meter, and we got to lower it. You got to learn how to do better things and right, be a good person. And they had this whole montage where they're trying to teach Stitch, where she's trying to teach Stitch how to behave and do things in a good way. Now, Stitch, at other times, there's still like a tendency where he's just like, oh, never mind, I'm going to destroy something. Like, they had to explain he's on an island somehow, and it was just like all of a sudden he wants to go off and rampage cities or something. But this was done where Jumba, which would be Stitch's creator, because Stitch is an experiment, right? A genetic mutations experiment, something along those lines. So this Jumba alien created Stitch, and he's narrating at the time that, oh, he's going to want to go out and destroy cities and those kind of things because that's what he was made for. And so there are a couple times where it seems like Stitch was wired to just be bad and do bad, and that Jumba is the one that's pushing that narrative. And Jumba Jumba doesn't have a redeeming part about him. He At the end he gets nabbed and put in jail. It's not like, oh, Jumba, you're okay now. No, he was bad, and it's pretty clear that he was bad the whole time. But Stitch does seem to have a lot of his badness as life learned, and the only reason he was with Lilo anyway is because he learned that the aliens that were trying to get him to capture him, because he escaped, right? That were trying to capture him, they wanted to keep the humans out of it. They didn't want to expose the humans to the fact that there were aliens around, right? Um, yeah, somehow Stitch can pretend that he's a dog. He's a little alien. Um, it is a kids show, right? Or a kids movie, right? So Stitch is hanging out with the people because of that. But um, and even because of that, he's looking at this dog poster. They have a lot, and I think they do for the most part a decent job. So there's a dog poster, and Stitch is like, "Oh no, they don't want to be around the people, but I gotta get out of here." And so how do I do that? And he's looking at this picture poster with a dog and a girl hugging, and it says like adopt a pet or something. And he's going back and forth and back and forth, and he's in the pound, back and forth, and then to the photo. So like it keeps showing the photo so that little kids like get the idea. Oh, and then he goes and pretends to be a dog. And they're even saying things like, he tries to talk to her, and she's like, "Oh, he talks," and the adults are like, "Dogs don't talk," and he's like, "Oh, rough," So Stitch, I think they did a good job of like his bad behavior. A lot of it is learned behavior, which was cool. Um, it was not what I expected. I thought that he was just going to be straight up bad, and then it was kind of be like, a lot of the jokes are him being bad and stuff. But a lot of the funny parts are not necessarily him being bad and stuff. So that was really good. Um, there are some. Uh, there are some family squabbles and quarrels and stuff like that, and Lilo does do some bad stuff. A kid's not mean to her or something. She shoves her. She lets somebody's chickens loose, and she goes into places where she's not supposed to be. So it's like the resorts in Hawaii, and they're not. They're not for. They're only for visitors, right? They're not for people who usually live there. And then so she'll sneak past the sign and get in there, and be like, I have to tell her to get out and that kind of stuff. Um, and then there's some fighting with her sister, where I can't remember if they said "I hate you." They might have said it. Um, but that same kind of attitude at one point in time was kind of present. There was some squabbling and that kind of thing. In fact, Nani catches her at one point in time. Is like, "What'd you do? What you did?" and stuff. And then you see Lila's mouth open and her teeth right at her arm. Right, you're like, "Oh no, she's gonna bite her." And then she just lets her go, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then she's like, "Did you just lick me?" I laugh because as a parent, that can happen sometimes. But the little kids, right? And so that just goes back to you. It feels like there's two movies being played out here. You know, there's the movie being played out that adults can relate to, and the movie being played out that the little kids can relate to. Um, for the kids in the in between, I think it still plays out fine. I think they're still going to like it. I think they're still going to enjoy it. And there's not too much to be concerned about. Like I said, people with the aliens. And then, as far, sorry, like I said, people with the aliens, and then with the swear. And the bad behavior is not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and it's pretty on par with a lot of the other kids' movies that aren't extreme and stuff. That are anyway. I'm trying to say it's normal. The kind of stuff that they exhibit. It's not anything over the top or anything that if your kids are used to watching movies made for kids, it's probably kind of stuff that they've seen before. But what they haven't probably seen before is a couple of the interesting little alien technology things that they got going on. So there is like I'm gonna call it a portal gun. If anybody's ever played the Portal video game, that's what it reminds me of. They put up one little thing on the wall and another little thing elsewhere, and you can walk through one and exit out the other kind of thing. And so they play with that a lot. It's neat, it's fun. And then there's these little, I don't know what you call them, but basically the two aliens touch somebody and then push a button and they duplicate how they look. And it's not used nefariously or anything. It's just used for them to blend in. So if I remember right, in the Lilo and Stitch original movie, it's been a long time since I've seen it. Um, but definitely in the cartoons, they didn't do that. I think they just put on human clothes, um, which I found more entertaining. But I could see why they do that now. You know, when they can just have a human who's pretending to be an alien for most of the movie. So most of the movie, Jumbo, which is Stitch's creator, and then Pleagley, who is the Earth expert, the alien Earth expert. Um, they assume a human form, and but they're using some little technology device, um, and they have a little play with that at times. But for the most part, they're looking like a human, and so they're kind of funny. Some funny dudes. They're not, in my opinion, as funny as they used to be. Um, I really missed Jumbo used to have an accent, and I thought that really sold his character well. And he does not have an accent. He's some. I've seen the actor's name before, but they picked somebody that's well known, I guess. He was kind of funny. And then the Pleakley character in the past used to cross dress because they are not an Earth expert. They just think they are, so he would dress like a woman, and it was funny in the past, right? They don't do that this time. He's a dude. Um, and they just don't touch the cross dressing thing, which is good. Especially the way that things are now. Disney apparently figured that out for this one that they aren't going to touch that topic. So I didn't see any LGBT or anything like that in this. Some of the other things that Disney likes to put in their movies are like cultural reference stuff. So this movie is set in Hawaii, And they do kind of, they have the whole Hawaii atmosphere going on. Um, but as far as like Hawaii specific things, um, uh, Lilo is in a hula class, and she gets kicked out. So at one point in time, she's in a hula class. They do their little hula dance, and then later she teaches it to Stitch. And there is, I think there's another scene where they hula dance, and then the guys are like juggling the fire torches and doing their little exhibit with the fire torches and stuff. And um, one of the core themes is Ohana means family, um, where they become like this. They become this new family, right? And there's some discussion about how Nani, I liked you better as a sister, and then it's like I accept you as the mother role, and those kind of things. And then Stitch becomes the dog, the pet, right? But he finds this family, and then that becomes his family, and that kind of thing. So, but there's not too much in the way of Hawaiian culture other than just the theme, and then that ohana, and then you have some hula dancing as part of the theme and everything. So, um, sometimes whenever Disney pulls in some other cultures and stuff, um, it can get kind of dark and those kind of things. And it didn't in this one. Um, Stitch is seen terrorizing a wedding as well. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I noticed anything that didn't seem normal wedding like with that. But there was a fart joke there, and I think there might have been another one later. But it was kids might miss it, but some of the kids in my theater did laugh. So I think that's all you need to know about this live action Lilo and Stitch. This is 2025 version. Um, like I said, it was like two different movies playing out at the same time, which was really interesting. And it came together with one big cheesy ending. um, people watch the Hallmark movies and they're cheesy, and kids watch those cheesy live action kids movies, and everybody's still happy. So I think it's just fine. I don't think it's like Disney's best movie ever or anything, but I think it's solid. Most people are going to find it fun and enjoyable, unless you have a reason, like I talked about earlier, that it's absolutely not going to work for you. There were a lot of kids in my theater at my showing. They were happy, they had fun. There was a lot of little theaters that they had open, screens, a lot of screens that they had open, actually playing Stitch and stuff too. School is out right now, um, but it seems like it's going to be something that most people are going to enjoy, most people are going to watch, and probably something that most people aren't going to object to. Like I said, it's unfortunate it's got swear in it. Um, but that's something that you got to consider as a parent, and then especially anybody who's parents of kids who's dealt with the foster system or anything like that. um, I really think you should watch it first before you show it to your kids, if they've had any sort of trauma associated with that. You really don't want to hurt your kids in that way or anything. So I hope this review was helpful to you. I hope you got what you needed, and now that you're informed and can make a good decision on whether to show this movie to your kids or not. I have a bunch of other reviews on other new movies and stuff. If that interests you, you want to subscribe. I talk about other parenting kind of things. I got some big project coming up I'll talk about here hopefully in the next few weeks. You can check out my blog. I got some other stuff there. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.